أعوذ بالله من الشيطان اللعين الرجيم. بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. اللهم صل على محمد وآل محمد. اللهم إني أفتتح الثناء بحمدك، وأنت مسدد للصواب بمنك، وأيقنت أنك أنت أرحم الراحمين في موضع العفو والرحمة، وأشد المعاقبين في موضع النكال والنقمة، وأعظم المتجبرين في موضع الكبرياء والعظمة. اللهم أعظمت لي في دعائك ومسألتك، فاسمع يا سميع مدحتي، وأجب يا رحيم دعوتي، وأقل يا غفور عثرتي. فكم يا إلهي من قربة قد فرجتها، وهموم قد كشفتها، وعثرة قد أقلتها، ورحمة قد نشرتها، وحلقة بلاء قد فككتها. الحمد لله الذي لم يتخذ صاحبة ولا ولدا، ولم يكن له شريك في الملك، ولم يكن له ولي من الذل، وكبره تكبيرا. الحمد لله بجميع محامده كلها، على جميع نعمه كلها. الحمد لله الذي لا مضاد له في ملكه، ولا منازع له في أمره. الحمد لله الذي لا شريك له في خلقه، ولا شبيه له في عظمته. الحمد لله فاشي في خلق أمره وحمده، الظاهر بالكرم مجده، الباسط بالجود يداه، الذي لا تنقص خزائنه، ولا تزيده كثرة العطاء إلا جودا وكرما. إنه هو العزيز الوهاب. اللهم إني أسألك قليلا من كثير مع حاجة به إليه عظيما، وغناك عنه قديم، وهو عندي كثير، وهو عليك سهل يسير. اللهم إن عفوك عن ذنبي، وتجاوزك عن خطيئتي، وصفحك عن ظلمي، وسترك على قبيح عملي، وحلمك عن كثير جرمي، عندما كان من خطئي وعمدي، أطمعني في أن أسألك ما لا أستوجبه منك، الذي رزقتني من رحمتك، وأريتني من قدرتك، وعرفتني من إجابتك، فصرت أدعوك آمنا، وأسألك مستأنسا، لا خائفا ولا وجلا، مدلا عليك فيما قصدت فيه إليك. فإن عبت عني عتبت بجهلي عليك، ولعل الذي نعبت عني هو خير لي، لعلمك بعاقبة الأمور. فلم أر مولا كريما أصبر على عبد لعيم منك علي. يا ربي إنك تدعوني فأولي أن، وتتحبب إلي فأتبغض إليك، وتتودد إلي فلا أقبل منك، كأن لي التطول عليك، فلم يمنعك ذلك من الرحمة لي والإحسان إليه والتفضل علي بجودك وكرمك، فارحم عبدك الجاهل وجد عليه بفضل إحسانك، إنك جواد كريم. الحمد لله مالك الملك مجري الفلك مسخر الرياح فالق الأصباح ديان الدين رب العالمين. الحمد لله على حلمه بعد علمه، والحمد لله على عفوه بعد قدرته، والحمد لله على طول عناته في غضبه وهو قادر على ما يريد. الحمد لله مالك الملك، الحمد لله خالق الخلق باسط الرزق فالق الأصباح ذي الجلال والإكرام والفضل والإنعام، الذي بعد فلا يراه وقرب فشهد النجوى تبارك وتعالى. الحمد لله الذي ليس له منازع يعادله ولا شبيه يشاكله ولا ظهير يعاضده، قهر بعزته الأعزة وتواضع لعظمته العظمى فبلغ بقدرته ما يشاء. الحمد لله الذي يجيبني حين أنادي ويستر علي كل عورة وأنا عاصي، ويعظم النعمة علي فلا أجازي، فكم من موهبة هنيئة قد أعطاني، وعظيمة مخوفة قد كفاني، وبهجة مونقة قد أراني، فأثني عليه حامدا وأذكره مصبحا. الحمد لله الذي لا يحتك حجاب ولا يغلق باب ولا يرد الصائل ولا يخيب آمل. الحمد لله الذي يؤمن الخائفين وينجي الصالحين ويرفع المستضعفين ويضع المستكبرين ويهلك ملوكا ويستخلف آخرين. والحمد لله قاصم الجبارين مبير الظالمين مدرك الهاربين نكال الظالمين صريخ المستصرخين موضئي حاجات الطالبين معتمد المؤمنين. الحمد لله الذي من خشيته ترعد السماء وسكانها وترجف الأرض وعمارها وتموج البحار ومن يسبح في غمراتها. الحمد لله الذي هدانا لهذا وما كنا لنهتدي لولا أن هدانا الله. الحمد لله الذي يخلق ولم يخلق ويرزق ولا يرزق ويطعم ولا يطعم ويميت الأحياء ويحيي الموتى وهو حي لا يموت بيده الخير وهو على كل شيء قدير. اللهم صل على محمد عبدك ورسولك وأمينك وصفيك وحبيبك وخيرتك من خلقك وحافظ سرك ومبلغ رسالاتك. أفضل وأحسن وأجمل وأكمل وأزكى وأنمى وأطيب وأطهر وأصنى وأكثر ما صليت وباركت وترحمت وتحننت وصلمت على أحد من عبادك وأنبيائك ورسلك وصفوتك وأحلى الكرامة عليك من خلقك. اللهم وصل على علي أمير المؤمنين ووصي رسول رب العالمين، عبدك ووليك وأخي رسولك وحجتك على خلقك وآيتك الكبرى والنبأ العظيم. وصل على صديقة الطاهرة فاطمة سيدة النساء العالمين. وصل على أئمة المسلمين وصل على سبطي الرحمة وإمامي الهدى الحسن والحسين سيدا شباب أهل الجنة. وصل على أئمة المسلمين علي بن الحسين ومحمد بن علي وجعفر بن محمد وموسى بن جعفر وعلي بن موسى ومحمد بن علي وعلي بن محمد والحسن بن علي والخلف الهادي المهدي حججك على عبادك وأمنائك في بلادك صلاة كثيرة دائمة. اللهم وصل على ولي أمرك القائم المؤمل والعدل المنتظر وحفه بملائكتك المقربين وأيده بروح القدس يا رب العالمين. اللهم صل على اللهم اجعله الداعي إلى كتابك والقائم بدينك، استخلفه في الأرض كما استخلفت الذين من قبله، مكن له دينه الذي ارتضيته له، عبدله من بعد خوفه أمنا، يعبدك لا يشرك بك شيئا. اللهم أعزه وأعزز به، وانصره وانتصر به، وانصره نصرا عزيزا، وافتح له فتحا يسيرا، واجعل له من لدنك سلطانا نصيرا. اللهم أظهر به دينك وسنة نبيك حتى لا يستخفيا بشيء من الحق مخافة أحد من الخلق. اللهم إنا نرغب إليك في دولة كريمة تعز بها الإسلام وأهله، وتضل بها النفاق وأهله، وتجعلنا فيها من الدعاة إلى طاعتك والقادة إلى سبيلك، وترزقنا بها كرامة الدنيا والآخرة. اللهم ما عرفتنا من الحق فحملنا، وما قصرنا عنه فبلغنا. اللهم المم به شعثنا، واشعب به صدعنا، وارتق به فتقنا، وكثر به قلتنا، وأعزز به ذلتنا، وأغن به عائلنا، واقض به عن مغرمنا، واجبر به فقرنا، وسد به خلتنا، ويسر به عسرنا، وبيض به وجوهنا، وفك به أسرنا، وأنجه به طلبتنا، وأنجز به مواعيدنا، واستجب به دعوتنا، وعاتنا به سؤلنا، وبلغنا به من الدنيا والآخرة آمالنا، وعاتنا به فوق رغبتنا يا خير المسؤولين، يا خير المسؤولين، يا خير المسؤولين، وأوسع المعطين. اشف به صدورنا، واذهب به غيظ قلوبنا، واهدنا به لما اختلف فيه من الحق بإذنك، إنك تهدي من تشاء إلى صراط مستقيم. وانصرنا به على عدوك وعدونا إله الحق، آمين. اللهم إنا نشكو إليك فقد نبينا صلواتك عليه وآله، وغيبة ولينا، وكثرة عدونا، وقلة عددنا، وشدة الفتن بنا، وتظاهر الزمان علينا. فصل على محمد وآله، وأعنا على ذلك بفتح منك تعجل، وبذر تكشف، ونصر تعز، وسلطان حق تظهر، ورحمة منك تجللناها، وعافية منك تلبسناها، برحمتك يا أرحم الراحمين. اللهم صل على محمد وآل محمد. إذا أرواح المؤمنين والمؤمنات ومن مات على الإيمان. سورة المباركة الفاتحة. بسم الله.
Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullah. Alhamdulillah, thank you everyone for joining us tonight. Inshallah, just a few announcements before we begin the speech. Again, another reminder regarding the Yasin is accepting donations. I did check recently, there's many days for sponsoring the nights of Ramadan still open. There's also days that have already passed that are still open. So if you would like to take advantage of that to sponsor one of the nights or a portion of the night, we would greatly appreciate that, inshallah. Again, that could be done through the email or through, Assalamu alaikum, or there's Zelle, you could give a check, cash, and so on and so forth. Again, I know I said this several times, but just a reminder, there are QR codes in the back on both sides if you would like to use that either to do a donation. There's also one of the QR codes is if you want to join the Yasin WhatsApp group. So we're going to be posting announcements on there for programs, inshallah. Also, again, I mentioned this yesterday. I want to mention it again that tomorrow night at 11 p.m., there's a joint youth program, multi-center program. There's going to be multiple scholars. Sayyid Abbas Razavian is going to be there, Sheikh Ahmad Mudarris, and Sheikh Mahdi Dardashti, inshallah. There's also going to be food, sports, fun, games, and it's going to end with suhoor, inshallah. I was discussing with Sayyid now, it might be difficult for some of the younger kids to make it, so we're going to try maybe to carpool if that's available. So if you have a kid that age, or if you're in an age that you can't drive, for example, we could maybe discuss with some of the older brothers to try to set something up so we could carpool there. Okay, inshallah, tonight also there's going to be a children's program like the remaining nights, inshallah, for ages 4 through 8. Just a friendly reminder that especially the youth outside of this age range, we would rather them be in the program, not outside and not upstairs. And if we could keep just a friendly reminder for the parents to keep an eye on their kids, inshallah. Of course, the children are more than welcome and we love to have them here. It's just a friendly reminder, inshallah. Okay, and without further ado, please help me invite Sayyid Abbas with a loud salawat ala Muhammad wa ali Muhammad. Sorry, my apologies. There's a request, inshallah, to do a short skit, inshallah. Let's invite the two brothers with a loud salawat ala Muhammad wa ali Muhammad. صلوا على محمد وآل محمد. اللهم صل على محمد وآل محمد.
Ramadan Mubarak Jawad.
I still didn't see the hilal.
You don't have to see it. It's enough if two just witnesses saw the hilal.
But the problem is that my friend Hilal is still at school.
Okay, one more salawat for them, inshallah. Okay, without further ado, please help me invite Sayyid Abbas with a loud salawat ala Muhammad wa ali Muhammad.
أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم الحمد لله رب العالمين والصلاة والسلام على أشرف الأنبياء والمرسلين سيدنا ومولانا أبي القاسم المصطفى محمد اللهم صل على محمد وعجل فرجه وعلى أهل بيته الطيبين الطاهرين ولعنة الله على أعدائهم إلى يوم الدين. Shahr Ramadan is the time period for us to seek higher levels of guidance. And divine guidance is in two parts. One is knowledge and knowing, and the other part is reaching. So while we are fasting, praying, reciting Quran, our level of guidance is going higher, because guidance has different stages. And you see that when it comes to guidance, Allah opens the hearts of people for guidance. And He keeps that heart open for those that He loves and those that deserve it. And He opens it up even more for those that He truly loves. And you see that they are excelling, or you see yourself that in this month, you are becoming more guided towards Allah. In one of the verses of the Holy Quran, it mentions, فَمَنْ يُرِدِ اللَّهِ أَنْ يَهْدِيَهُ يَشْرَحْ صَدْرَهُ لِلْإِسْلَامِ. In Surah Al-An'am, verse 125. So whoever Allah wants to guide, He expands his breast to contain Islam. So this inshirah of the qalb, this opening of the heart to Islam, is from who? From God. Not that God randomly chooses who to guide. He sees who is fit for guidance, who deserves this guidance, who deserves a higher type of guidance. And I'm sure that in Shahr Ramadan you're noticing this, that you're becoming more guided to who? To God. When you get closer to Him, you're getting more guided. In one of the books of tafsir, Majmul Bayan, there's an interesting tradition. And the narrator asks, he says to the Prophet, Su'ila Rasulullah sallallahu alayhi wa sallam, Man sharaha sadma huwa. What is this opening of the heart? Very good question in this narration. Thank you so much. What is the opening of the heart? So Allah in the Quran mentions whoever God wants to guide, He opens their heart. Well, what is this? What is the opening of the heart? And Rasulullah mentions Nurun yaqdhifuhu Allah fi qalb al-mu'min. It is a light that God instills in the heart of the believer. It's a light, it's a nur. So sometimes we think that divine guidance is in a way that we are responsible, we are at charge, but when you take a step back, you realize that actually divine guidance is very complicated, and it is up to God to guide people. He is the factor, He is the agent of guidance. And when He wants to guide in this tradition, what is it? He takes light and nur and puts it in your heart, and you're guided. Then the narrator asks this question, and very good question. It's a follow-up question. فَهَلْ لِذَلِكَ أَمَارَ يُعْرِفْ بِهَا. Is there a sign of divine guidance? You said, Rasulullah, that divine the opening of the heart is light and nur. So is there a sign to know if I have light? If you ask right now, maybe this was your question. Do I have light in my chest? Do I have light in my heart? Rasulullah answers 3 qualities. And these 3 qualities will be, inshallah, the topic that we'll be talking about this next, inshallah, 13 nights of Shahr Ramadan. The Prophet said, Na'am, yes, there are signs of this light in your heart. Let's see if we have them. Al-inabatu ila dar al-khulud. Sign number 1. Turning to the everlasting, the ever-remaining world. Turning towards that world. What does it mean when someone turns towards that world? When you turn towards something, it means you're going in that direction. It means you're focusing. Means that believer that is now guided, that believer that has iman, that sign of iman is that he has turned completely, and all his focus and everything that he's doing is for the akhirat. He's working for the akhirat. The second, at-tajafi and dar al-ghurur, and separation or to shun away from the world of illusion. What is the world of illusion? This world, because the world of illusion it's an illusion. You think it's great, you think it's everlasting, you think it's something that it's worth your entire life to work for, but it's an illusion. It's all going to vanish. So the second sign, do you want to see if God has opened our heart? See, the second sign is that you separate, you shun away from the world. Not that you stop going to work or you don't work hard, but your heart is not there. You're doing you work for the akhirat, you're doing work for Allah. But your entire way that you're facing, if they look at you, you're facing towards the akhirat. You're working for the hereafter. And the last is وَالْإِسْتِعْدَادْ لِلْمَوْتِ قَبْلَ النُّزُولِ الْمَوْتِ, and preparedness and being ready for death before death happens. So all of these three things is talking about the hereafter and not focusing on the world and reminding ourselves of death and being prepared for death. And that is the topic that I have chosen to talk about these remaining nights of Shahr Ramadan. Because of this narration, you could say, is important, because these are a sign for us that if our hearts are open or not. Do you want to see if your heart is open? Which way are you facing? Are you facing dunya or are you facing akhirah? Hopefully in Shahr Ramadan you're facing akhirah. How prepared are you for the world? If you are for death, if you are prepared for death, know that God has guided you. These are all three major signs that hopefully Allah, through these lectures and through these discussions, we can know more about death, know more and face more for the hereafter, and understand more that this world is a world of illusion. Because if somebody realizes that this world is just an illusion, then they will wake up, as the tradition has, An-nasun niyam, people are asleep. Then when they die in tabahu, when they die they wake up. But when they wake up it's too late. They show them everything. They say, oh no, you're right, it is Darul Ghurur. It was an illusion, it tricked me. That was Darul Khulud, that was everlasting. Now I don't have anything for myself. Take me back, allow me to go back. Maybe I can do one more La ilaha illallah. They say, no, you cannot go back. So brothers and sisters, this Shahr Ramadan, prepare ourselves for death. Read about death, study about death. We talked about before, I started this topic before Shahr Ramadan. I'm not going to repeat those discussions. You can look them up online if you want to. But this discussion of death is so important. Don't think it's only for the old people. Those that are above, for example, 80. And that, for example, me, someone that's like me, 25 years old, plus 1,000 months. Someone like me, I don't need to worry about it. Because why? Death happens anytime. A lot of times you hear about death, it happened instantaneous. It was an accident. It was a sickness. And they told them they have, a few weeks to live or a few months to live. Death is like this. It doesn't wait for you. So you have to be prepared for death. So this is for all ages. Doesn't matter if you're young or old. And do not be afraid. Now that I'm going to talk about death, don't say I'm not going to come to the lectures anymore. I'm going to be afraid. You should not be afraid of death. Because a person, we mentioned this before though, if a person is afraid of death, they haven't understood death. We're going to talk about what that exact qabd al-ruh is, taking of the soul tonight. We're going to talk about it. And the discussion that we have tonight is this important part of death, is who is the angel of death? Who is Israel, or some say Azrael? Azrael is a word they say from Hebrew, which means servant of God. There's a lot of rumors, a lot of bad that we have done about the angel of death. We talk behind his back a lot. We do his ghaybat a lot of times. Because we're afraid of him, we talk bad about him. But actually, when you look at the traditions, there's traditions and du'as that we send salutations upon Israel. Isn't it better to be his friend? At least he can help us when he comes to get our soul. Say, I knew you, and I did, some a'mal for you. Take my soul gently. So our perception of the angel of death is usually something very scary. And we're afraid to even look at it. But in reality, how Allama Tabatabai mentions, he has one face. He doesn't have multiple faces. His face will just represent your actions. If your actions were ugly, he will be very ugly and scary for you. We'll mention this hadith. Prophet Ibrahim wished, or maybe I'll just mention it now. Prophet Ibrahim wished to see the angel of death, not in the good way, because in the good way, when he saw him, he's very handsome for those like Prophet Ibrahim. Very handsome. Some get surprised and say, is there anybody more handsome than Israel? MashaAllah. So praise him, so he likes us, inshallah. Muhammad. Allahumma salli ala Muhammad wa ala Muhammad wajjal farajahum. So Prophet Ibrahim asks to see the scary face of Israel. And there is a scary face, just to show him. Of course, there's nothing evil about Prophet Ibrahim. He just wants to see. And yes, he does have that scary face for those that do evil. And he asks, and they tell him that, you cannot, la tutiqu dhalik. You cannot bear this, Ibrahim. You cannot bear seeing him, how he truly is. He says, Bala, I can. فأعرض عنه فأعرض عنه ثم التفت فإذا هو, he became a man that was breathing fire from his nose and mouth. Very scary face. And Ibrahim at that time, فغشى على Ibrahim, he passed out. He saw the angel of death and passed out. ثم أفاق, and he woke up and he said, that's sufficient for the fajr, the corrupt person, that will basically be his punishment, just to see him. So Israel, when we talk about him, he is actually one of the four main angels. One of the four main angels, we have Mikael, Israfil, Jibrail, and Azrael. And he has junud and malaika that work for him. So don't ask that question, what happens if all these people die together? Does the angel of death work overtime? No, he does not work overtime. He has agents. He has other angels that work for him, and they help in that respect. Or you could say this, that when it comes to mujarradat and metaphysical beings, there's no time and space for them. So they could do anything without a specific time. He could take away 100 million lives at one time. No problem. He doesn't have to work overtime. So we look at Israel throughout the Quran, and you see how beautifully one of the chapters of Quran, Surah Sajda, mentions about him. Actually mentions him, Malak al-Maut. Anybody heard of this term? Malak al-Maut, the angel of death. وَقَالُوا أَإِذَا ضَلَلْنَا فِي الْأَرْضِ أَإِنَّا لَفِي خَلْقٍ جَدِيدٍ. They say, when we are lost in the earth, Quran says, will we indeed be recreated in a new creation? What does it mean to be lost in the earth? What do you think that means? To be lost in the earth. Tafsir says that, when you're buried, you decompose. There's nothing remaining of you. You get lost in the earth. So the main question that the infidels or the polytheists or kuffar had was not about God, was about the hereafter. And their main question was about resurrection. How can God create again? So they ask, when we're in the earth, can God give a new creation? بَلْ هُمْ بِلِقَاءِ رَبِّهِمْ كَافِرُونَ قُلْ يَتَوَفَّاكُمْ مَلَكُ الْمَوْتِ. The angel of death will take you. Here Quran says يَتَوَفَّى means to take, to snatch. That's what the root comes from. It doesn't mean annihilation. It means he's taking you, just the tafsir says, like a midwife, for example, when a child is born, there's a midwife, there's a doctor, and gets that baby, and that baby is delivered. Us, in the same way, we become born again, and our life, our true life starts happening. So he's like that midwife, for example, if he doesn't get offended by this term, and he helps you become and reach and snatches your spirit, and so therefore your new life begins. But does this mean there's no material body? No. Of course there's a material body. This is the dhuhur of the Quran. There will be a material body again. But our true essence is our spirit. So he takes that spirit, and therefore the new life begins. He snatches, takes it. There's no annihilation. When we really talk about death in Islam, there's no annihilation. It's just snatching of the soul and transforming into another stage of life, which is actually the true stage of life, to real hayat. And I gave this example before. It's like when a child is with, in the womb of its mother, technically that is hayat, that is life. Islamically, that is life. Say after 4 months, that is life. But we don't say he's born yet. We don't give it an age yet. The age starts when he comes to this world. Because that life was as if it was nothing, right? They're next to, in the womb of the mother. They're not, what are they hearing? What are they seeing? But then when a child is born and they come to this world, they experience life. The example is actually when we die and we go to the next world, that's going to be like another birth for us. And that's actually going to be the true life for us. So he's just snatching for us to come to that other life. Other examples then in the Quran that refutes this claim that they say, how can Allah create when we're buried in the ground, when we're lost in the ground? How can God create us again? In Surah Yasin, we read in the Quran that there's a person that came to the Prophet and he had a decomposed bone. And it's one of the verses of Surah Yasin. And he comes and he's so convinced that this article is so sound that he's asking for, where's, he says it by his first name, addresses our Prophet by his first name, and says, where is he? I'm going to, reject him and his claims that there's a hereafter. And he comes, the Quran says this, it says, وَضَرَبَ لَنَا مَثَلًا وَنَسْيَ خَلْقًا قَالَ مَنْ يُحْيِي الْعِظَامَ وَهِيَ الرَّمِيمُ. Who's going to be able to give life to the bones while they are disintegrated? So he came, this is the quote from him. He came and challenged the Prophet. And Quran answers about this that قُلْ يُحْيِيهَا الَّذِي أَنْشَأَهَا أَوَّلَ مَرَّةٍ. The same God that created it, originated it from the first time, He will be the God that will again bring life and give life to it for the second time. Which one is harder? To create the first time or to do this again? To do it the first time. So the first time was harder. So therefore the same God that has created Allah that's created the bones, He will create this again. So that is about the angel of death. But what is qabdh ruh? What is taking away of the soul? Because this will happen to all of us. Taking away of the soul in the tradition, in the hadith, is like sleep. It's like sleep. And actually, every time we sleep, that is happening to us. Every time we sleep, our soul gets separated. It's like death. It's a mini death. Actually, there's a lot of similarities between death and sleep. Look at the tradition. From the tradition from Imam Jawad, alayhi salam, it says, لَمَّا سُئِلَ عَنِ الْمَوْتِ هُوَ النَّوْمِ. Imam Jawad alayhi salam asked about death. He says, death is like sleep. الَّذِي يَأْتِيكُمْ كُلَّ لَيْلَةٍ. Every night you have death. Every night there is death for you. إِلَّا أَنَّهُ الطَّوِيلُ مُدَّتُهُ وَلَا يُنْتَبَى مِنْهُ إِلَّا يَوْمَ الْقِيَامَةِ. It's just like sleep, but that sleep that will last to the day of judgment. Or you see, for example, the Prophet of Islam. He had specific dua before he went to sleep. What did he make dua for? What did he dua for? بِأَسْمِكَ اللَّهُمَّ أَحْيَا وَبِسْمِكَ أَمُوتُ. With your name I will live again, and with your name I will die. Alhamdulillah أحياني بعدما أماتني وإليه النشور. Praise be to God that He has given me life after my death. So you see, the Prophet of Islam is mentioning that death is also in the dua like sleep. Slumber is like death. Imam Ali alayhi salam recommends not to sleep when somebody is impure. Because when you're impure, what happens when you sleep? You're actually visiting God in your sleep. You're visiting Him. لا ينام المسلم وهو جنوب فَإِنَّ الرُّوحُ الْمُؤْمِنِ تَرْتَفَعْ إِلَى اللَّهِ. The spirit of man goes, his ruh goes towards Allah. So that spirit should not be impure. So you see this similarity that every time that we have, that when we sleep, and that happens all the time, that is very similar to death. So let's talk about the face of Israel that we did. The face of Israel is in a way that according to a person's actions, that person will be in the same way. If his actions were ugly, then Israel will be very ugly for him. If that person's actions or in a way will be good, it will be the most handsome. You see how Prophet Ibrahim alayhi salam in another story, how he actually had his death came to him. Because he saw the angel of death, and the angel of death got permission from him. And he even joked with the angel of death and says, I thought you were basically my friend. How come a friend wants to take away the life of another? And then Allah mentions from there's the hadith that Allah calls Ibrahim alayhi salam after a life of trials and tribulations and tests that he reaches the high position of Prophet Ibrahim, that now Allah calls him Al-Khalil, the friend of God, and Allah calls him and mentions, does not the lover want to see the one that he loves? So therefore Allah inspires Prophet Ibrahim to give life and to reach, inshallah, Allah. So when we look at these narrations and we see that death is actually something for us, a reality, the angel of death is a reality, we come to this conclusion. What does it mean for us? It means that this, one, there is no torment or punishment besides what we do for ourselves or what we do to others. Dear brother, dear sister, if you do not harm anyone, if you're kind to everyone, if you live like a good person in society, and you fulfill your haqqullah as well, there's nothing scary about death. There's nothing scary about the hereafter. Actually, you should be anticipating it and waiting for it. Because death is nothing but liqa'ullah, the meeting of God. Can a believer truly love God but not want to see Him? How do we see God? How does death liqa'ullah? Because the barriers are removed. This world is a world of barriers. You can remove it by ibadat, worship, by reaching yaqeen, you can remove it. But for everyone, it's removed once they reach death. And that day, the eyes will see sharp. So imagine, you will be able to see God. Obviously, not with the eyes, how imams say, with the heart. You will see Him without any barriers. How beautiful would that be? How beautiful is that to see Allah and to meet Him and that He speaks with you? So all of us should have this yearn and call that we want to meet God. We want to meet Him. We want to talk with Him. We want to be at His presence without any barriers. So for the mu'min, as you see, Imam Ali alayhi salam reaches a stage that Imam Ali mentioned, the other Imams talk about him and say, if Ali ibn Abi Talib would come to death, or death would come towards Ali ibn Abi Talib, there's no difference. He's always prepared for death. Imam Ali actually says in the narration that if you want to be prepared, if you want to be like Imam Ali, when it comes to death, they say, Mal isti'dad al-maut. What is preparedness for death? And he answers, Ada'ul fara'ith wa ijtinab al-maharim. Doing your wajibat, staying away from haram. That's for being prepared for death. Imagine you don't have anything, you don't have any sin. Why would you be afraid of death? And you have just the mercy of Allah. Your test is over. Actually, very beautifully in the tradition, it talks about the angel of death, how he comes repeatedly and visits the house. Sometimes you could say maybe 5 times a day he comes and visits the homes to see who's, who to snatch, who to take. And it says at that time when the angel of death comes, and it mentions that people are crying and they're sad. And he asks them this question. He's wondering, why are you so sad? Ala man tasrakhun. Why are you screaming? Wa ala man tabkun in the tradition. Why are you crying? He said, basically, you should be crying for yourself. You should not be crying for this person. You should be crying for yourself. فَلْيَبْكِ الْبَاكِ عَلَى نَفْسِهِ. Each person should cry because soon I'll be coming for him. Not that this thing happened for this person. Sometimes from this tradition you understand when death comes. And you say, oh, it's for that person, for, I don't know, him. They probably didn't do a good job driving. They probably didn't eat healthy. It's not for me. I eat healthy. I drive safe. I buckle up or whatever. So you think that death will never reach you because you think it's too far away from you. And the angel of death, it's his job. Death is his job. He's wondering, why are people crying when they should actually be reflecting and learning for themselves? Sometimes we even go to a graveyard, we go to a funeral, and we see that people are joking and taking this lightly. Like, wait a minute, what happens if right now, let me ask you, what would happen if tonight was my last night in this world? And this salat that I did was the worst salat ever, for example. This fast, I didn't reach my full potential. I have so many acts of worship to make up. I still have to pay homes. I still listen to music. I still look at things that are not good to look at, for example. I know all these things are bad, but I just would procrastinate how I did with so many other things and say, okay, I'm going to, take care of these things later on in life. But the tradition says, place death in front of you. Because if you do this, you will be the most prepared. Live your life as if you're going to live 1,000 years. Plan it. Have a good job. Study well. All of this. Plan it. But also be prepared that this is your last day. If I truly were to believe tonight was my last day, would I ever be mean to anyone here? I'd probably hug everyone. Brother, assalamu alaikum, goodbye. Seeing everybody would be smiling and happy that their Sayyid is leaving them. Alhamdulillah. So, I'm joking. So, if I really believe this, I would never be cruel to anyone. Even say the kids, the family. Sometimes you have a dispute with someone. And this happens, it's the worst thing that God forbid you fight with someone, they're your family, your friend, and then death comes and there's no chance for you to come to them and ask for forgiveness. Or for example, that person or I might die and there might be no chance for all the backbiting that was happening, or for example, lies, for example, and as a joke, and to be made up. So therefore, you see that taking death as a tool for us, and learning that the angel of death says, فَلْيَبْكِ الْبَاكِ عَلَى نَفْسِهِ, he should cry for himself, meaning he should cry and be prepared. وَإِنَّ لِي فِيكُمْ أَوْدَاتٍ وَأَوْدَاتٍ, I have returns and returns. I'll be coming back. I'll be coming back, keep coming back. I'll keep coming back. In the tradition, the angel of death says, حَتَّى لَا يَبْقِ فِيكُمْ أَحَدًا, until nobody else will be staying. Nobody else will be living. Even he takes his own soul at the end. Nobody in this world will last forever. So dear brother, dear sister, in the Shahr Ramadan, one of the biggest instruments that we have in order to encourage ourselves to become good is to realize that there is a death that is awaiting for us. That's not scary. It just means, and the tradition says too, he says, why are you crying? He says, this is how much life he had. He's confused basically. Why are people crying? This is how much his life was. This is how much rizq he had. This is how much provision he has. His life is over now. Why are you sad? So we can take benefit of this important instrument that Allah has given us in order for us to wake up before they have to awake us. To do muhasabah of the nafs, to analyze our own souls in this Shahr Ramadan before they analyze us and they ask us. And if I were to ask you tonight, if you have 1 week left to live, what would you do? How would you, for example, live your life? One of our great ulama by the name of Ayatollah Mirza Shirazi, Sahib of Fatwa Tambako, that gave the opinion that tobacco was haram, and because he was going against the British at that time, in Samirra, he mentions, they ask him, this mujtahid, they ask him, what would you do if death were to approach you this last week, or you had 1 more week to live? What would you do? Someone like me, I would say, I have so many sins, so much things to make up, that I have to fulfill these things the entire week. This great marja and mujtahid said that I would do nothing different. I would do nothing differently. Meaning that he has lived life in a way that he has maximized it. He is not sinning at all. He is just worshiping Allah. He's just teaching. And he's doing whatever he needs to do in this world. He has maximum. He says, I will not change anything. Imagine reaching a state where if they were to ask you, this is your last day, you say, I'd continue the same program because this is the best program. So hopefully Shahr Ramadan is for us to change this program that we had, to change, what we are doing, to take haram away from us, that's preparedness for death, and to fulfill our wajibat. This is the most important thing we can do to serve God, inshallah. May Allah have mercy on the souls of the deceased, our family members, our friends, our parents, grandparents, all the way to Adam alayhi salam. May Allah prepare us for death, inshallah. May Allah give us a gentle death. They say for the lover of Amir al-Mu'mineen alayhi salam, the angel of death, in the same way that he takes the life of the prophets, will be so gentle to the lover of Ali alayhi salam, the follower of Ali alayhi salam. May Allah give us a gentle death, inshallah. May Allah prepare us for death. Hopefully we can, through the Shahr Ramadan, Allah will answer all of our du'as. Many of you tonight have du'as. There's different things that you need. Know that the month of Ramadan is the month that Allah will answer your prayers. Allah answer, inshallah, everyone's prayers here. Make us of the companions of the Imam of the age. And inshallah expedite his return with a salawat ala Muhammad wa ali Muhammad. Actually, let me get the microphone back. Are there any questions that we have about tonight's? You seem too prepared and it seems hard. This doesn't have internet access. Minhal, can you come here to help? Okay.
So in the Quran it says, the shuhada are alive, to, console the believers. I'm wondering how is that different from any other person? Because after they die, aren't they also in the barzakh? Is there a different status that they have, or what is the difference exactly?
Usually the higher status a person has, the more alive they are and the more they have contact with this world. They can hear and see. They're more, or see their family, for example. So they have more of life, because life is also tashkiki. This is one answer. I don't want to say this is what Quran says. This is what comes to my mind without looking at tafsirs, because I don't have internet connection. But a person's life is tashkiki as well. So life, hayat, has levels. Level 1, level 2, level 3, level 4, level 5. Right now, for example, before Shahr Ramadan, you might have been level 2. But because you're fasting and worshiping God, you're at level 4. You're more alive. You're more alive because the Quran also mentions the prophets came to give us life. So when somebody sacrifices everything for Allah, he reaches the highest level, which is, true hayat, true life. Everyone else is life, but compared to them, it's not true life, as if they have real life because of the sacrifice they made. And because of the position they have, somebody that has that status, they can do shafa and intercession, say for 70 people or for multiple people. So they have a different category of life. So it's not only as if everyone else is dead. You can say that they have a different maybe meaning of life. They have true life. But a person that does not work on themselves, they are just dead. They might not be able to do much from the grave. Their soul is not. They might hear maybe on certain days when they come to see them, they could see that person that visits them. But it's not like an imam that is shaheed, like Imam Hussein alayhi salam, that if you say salam to him here, he will say wa alaikum salam back to you, like that. That is a different level of life. Or that our prophet, that we say as-salam to him in our salat. Why would we say salam to him if he's not alive? And that's one of the arguments we say against the Salafis or Wahhabis is death is not annihilation, especially to Rasulullah when you're saying salam to him. So the highest forms of life are, the prophets, and the imams and those that in the shaheed, those categories, the alim, for example, they have the highest level, but especially that category, they have a special life, for example. And the narration also says that at the top of that list is Hadrat Abbas, narration from Imam Sajjad, that every shaheed wishes they had the position of Hadrat Abbas. So if you take this verse and you put it with this hadith, you see the most alive, one of the most alive people is Hadrat Abbas. Allahumma salli ala Muhammad wa ali Muhammad. Of course, after his brother Imam Hussein alayhi salam. Yes. This is a hard one too. Okay. Oh. Let me drink some water first. Get prepared.
About Angel Azrael, how he's not limited by space and time, so there's no restrictions with, for example, doing multiple things at the same time. Is this also the same thing for the Ahlul Bayt? Because when the question comes to mind, because for tawassul, for shafa'a, for these kind of things, or for example, there's many hadith about, for example, Imam Mahdi sees all of our actions on Friday and so on and so forth. So is it that they also have this lack of limitation by space and time?
The spirit, yes, because the actual part of our existence is the spirit, which is like an angel. So we share this with the angels, is that our spirit is metaphysical, and our spirit never dies like the angels. Once our spirit is created, it never has death. So yes, in terms of the spirit, and of course they have the highest of spirits that anyone can, higher than an angel, then that level of limitations in that realm is a separate realm for the spirit. Actually, that's a good question. And some ask, where do the spirits go when we die? Where does it go to? It doesn't go to anywhere, a planet or something. It just goes to another stage of life. That stage of life is, what we call as barzakh, or we call it the alim al-malakut, or alim al-batin. That there's no time in it, or there's no space in it, because they're metaphysical. So yes, for there's no issue with, time limitations at the same way, because it's a different world, and it makes sense because we're talking about the spirit now.
Islamic tradition and ahadith, we often hear comparisons, like for example, like you mentioned in your speech, that is the angel of death can be the most handsome person, right? Similar statements have been made about other people in ahadith that Prophet Yusuf is the most handsome person.
Yeah.
And they say
true.
about Hazrat Ali Akbar, he is the most handsome person, right? So who is the most handsome person, for example?
First of all, we want to praise the angel of death. Is very, very handsome, mashallah. If he does not get offended, they say in heaven, the most tawusul ahlul jannah is Imam Zaman, Imam Mahdi. From all creation, it will be Imam Mahdi. Allahumma salli ala Muhammad wa ali Muhammad wa ajal farajahum. That's what the narration has. And the same heaven that Yusuf is there. So Tawus. Tawus is used as the most beautiful bird. So the most beautiful in the narration of Ahlul Jannah is Al-Mahdi. From the sisters did not ask a question. Maybe they were afraid of the topic or no. Okay, if you have questions later on. Okay, the sisters, there's no questions? Okay. Yes, if I know what the answer.
My question is around, one of the, you talked a little bit about Haqqul Nas and violating Haqqul Nas, and you have to seek forgiveness from the individual that you hurt or harmed. So what's the advice would you give if the people that you have hurt, or the person that you have hurt has passed on and died? What should you do in that situation?
If it's monetary, you would go to the inheritors. And you would go to their inheritors because you owe the inheritors. So you'd go to them and mention that, I owed your father or for something money, if you did. If it's like monetary, there's ways. If you cannot find them, there's something called Raddul Madhalim. You give this with the permission, what I believe is with the permission of your manager, you give this money as sadaqah on their behalf. So because there's no other way to find them. So if it's monetary, you have to make it up. There's no just forgive me. You have to go and give that money. If it's, other things, then if you can approach them and ask for forgiveness if they have passed away, maybe you can do good for them, give charity on their behalf. If it's, other things that there's no other way to be made up, you can give sadaqah on their behalf or read the Quran for them or do good for them. Hopefully they'll, inshallah, forgive us, inshallah. Yes?
So this may be tangential to your actual topic, but
It's okay if there's another. Some people were recommending a Q&A because we had it before at Yasin. If you have time, we can just continue other nights to do this if you want. So any topic is fine. Yeah.
it is about death.
Okay.
So some people have like when they've lost a loved one, they see that person in their dream. Are those like real experiences, or is that just like missing them?
I think that what they generally say about death is that it is a travel. It is not a just completely everything is fake. Actually, they say that it's a travel of the body and of the soul, and the body that you see is a body like ours. It's not this body. It's a body like ours, and there it actually is a real experience there. So it's not completely, I don't want to say that take your dreams and everything, just everything face value, that somebody has to interpret them correctly. But in general, that, as we said, that sleep, you're visiting God in the narration. So there is a reality to that sleep, to that dream. And many people, they use that, that reality to be able to enhance themselves in terms of spiritual growth. They'll find a teacher that can interpret dreams for them, and they can help them spiritually grow. So seeing that person is visiting them. Seeing the imams, for example, is something very good. Ziyarat of them, visiting them, in the dreams, or seeing the Prophet. So it's true, and people have used these for guidance sometimes. But again, it has to go with the aql, it has to go with interpretation, and But yes, it's true. Okay, so if you have any other questions, I'll answer them later on. Let's make a salawat ala Muhammad wa ali Muhammad.
صلوا على محمد وآل محمد. صلوا على محمد وآل محمد. Salam everyone, thank you for joining us tonight. Thank you Sayyid for the speech and the Q&A as well. Inshallah, we're going to continue the programs until the end of the month. We would love to see you all tomorrow and for the rest of the month. Please keep myself and each other in your du'as. And I also want to mention this as well. If anyone has any maybe recommendations for the program, or maybe ways that they could help out, volunteering and so forth, please let one of the volunteers know, and we would love to accommodate that. Thank you again. Let's end with Du'a al-Faraj, inshallah. بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. اللهم كن لوليك الحجة ابن الحسن صلواتك عليه وعلى آبائه في هذه الساعة وفي كل ساعة وليا وحافظا وقائدا وناصرا ودليلا وعينا حتى تسكنه أرضك طوعا وتمتعه فيها طويلا برحمتك يا أرحم الراحمين وصلى اللهم على سيدنا محمد وآله الطاهرين. Also, just one last friendly reminder, if we could please maybe we'll try to keep this center clean for tomorrow. If you find any trash lying around, please pick it up. Thank you so much.